Hey, Sean. So, what's the story with this podcast?
Good question, Sean. It's my understanding that two middle-aged Seans are getting together to decide whether art is shit or not.
Like Sean versus Sean.
Exactly. One Sean knows a lot about art, and the other Sean a lot about insurance.
Both are very middle aged and very Sean.
So, is art shit?
Let's see what Sean has to say about it. Welcome, Sean, to another episode of Is Art Shit?
What are we looking at this week, Sean?
I think it's going to be a short episode, mate. This week we are looking at Piero Manzoni, Artist's Shit, 1961. I think this one pretty much sums up what our whole podcast is about, because it is literally a dude who took a bunch of his own shit, put it in cans, and called it art. That's it in a nutshell. Let me describe the work from my perspective. The work, God. So it is 90 individual small cans of the artist's shit, 30-gram cans. The kind of just a normal, what you would have called a tin can in 1961, a small version of it, and labelled as artist's shit. It contents 30 grams, freshly preserved, produced and tinned May 1961, labelled in Italian, French, English and German. And at the time, those cans were sold or put on sale at the same price as gold per gram of shit. And there's something for us to talk about in that, I imagine. The price of gold at the time was $1.12 per gram. It's now, I don't know, 60 times that or whatever. So a can of shit was, whatever, $33 or something. And some of these cans have subsequently been sold for ridiculously astronomical prices in the hundreds of thousands of pounds kind of range. So who knows what one would go for if it was for sale today, but a hell of a lot higher than the equivalent weight of gold has appreciated since 1961. That's the work. I think it's self-explanatory. I'll just go straight to the end of this episode and surmise that is art shit? 100%, literally and figuratively, this is shit.
Well, of course, we know that a work of art isn't reducible to simply something that's literal or metaphorical, so we'll have to dig in a bit further. But
we're going to have to do a lot of digging, a lot.
Can I begin with just straight up with a question?
Mm.
Does this work irritate you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course it does. It's shit in a can, and just because an artist calls it art, I'm supposed to buy it? And people do. And I don't mean buy it literally like pay for it and get it. I'm supposed to agree that shit in a can is art. And obviously people do. The art world does. Even people outside of the art world obviously do, right? But surely this is the biggest case of the emperor's, not wearing any bloody clothes. Like, everyone's in on it. I'm not in on it. This guy did a turd in a can and he's trying to get away with it. Even when you read about what he said at the time, even he knew he was trolling. He was trolling the art world, and he's been like, he died not long after, but he's trolling from the grave. And honestly, so you do a bit of research and you look at what I'm sure are very well-renowned art historians or art critics or, people like yourself who live in the world, and that, like, wrapping it up with so much importance. Guys, he did a shit in a can, Yeah.
Well, sadly, he died only 2 years later at the age of 29. But
yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to put it to you.
What he would have gone on to produce after this election.
I'm going to put it to you that the mere fact that it annoys you reveals that you too recognize it as art.
Well, I get what you're saying, because, it evokes a response. And I get that's what his point was, right? But still, why are we revering this guy's shit over some other person's shit? Because he decided to put it in a can? Come on.
But the harshest critics, if you want to include yourself amongst the harshest critics, are still contributing to this matrix of considerations because they too are considering it art by becoming irritated by it. But anyway, that's a philosophical question. Perhaps we should turn to the American.
Before we turn further,
yeah,
in looking at previous works that annoy me, and there seems to be a very long list of them. We've talked about. We talked about Comedian, which was a banana taped to a wall, and subsequently another performance artist ate the banana and called the performance of eating the banana a work of art. I mean, I didn't see that anybody who is a performance artist has decided to open one of these cans of shit and call that a piece of art. It's got to have happened. I mean, if I've thought it up, surely another artist, surely an actual artist has thought it up.
Well, one artist made a cover version of sorts in the 90s. Gavin Turk produced a work called Artist Piss, which he sold at the weight of silver rather than gold.
Yeah.
Number ones are only worth silver, you see.
I saw that and I just thought, the guy couldn't get in front of shit, so he just did like the next best. Second best, eh? Yeah.
Of course, as Dad, you'll be familiar with the number 3, wouldn't you?
Oh, the number 3, absolutely.
Yeah. We won't go.
Let's not go anywhere near that one.
Imagine what that'd be worth.
No thanks.
All right, so perhaps we should turn to the philosophy of art for a moment. Arthur C. Danto, who wrote a book published, I think, in 1981, The Transfiguration of the Commonplace, in which he argued that the post-Duchampian gesture, i.e. the gesture that sits after the ready-made, the idea that anything can be taken from the continuum of everything else and shifted into the context of art and be considered art. So art that exists in this post-Duchampian world involves this strange philosophical transformation where something is, through some kind of act of intention, nomination, reception, is considered to be art. Now, of course, this, as we've discussed in previous episodes, mirrors something of that strange way in which we add air or value to things through labels. I mean, fashion labels. What kind of value does the mere addition of a label add to a garment, for example?
Yeah, well, it can 10 or 100x it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, in a way, this implicitly, this work is reminding us about the power of a label, the power of nomination. But it's quite an iconoclastic and humorous gesture. But there's still something to tell us. There's something in this that tells us something about the fetish for commodity, as Marx called it. This sense that we attribute value beyond the mere material value of something.
Yeah, it's art because he said so, and everybody else agrees. Yeah. Well, I'm saying I disagree.
But would you apply the same argument?
It's art because he says so, and I'm supposed to agree.
But as we've already established, in participating in this circus by taking issue with it, you're also contributing to this fictionalization, this process.
Yeah, just by talking about it now, I'm allowing him to get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So indifference would probably be a better strategy, wouldn't it?
It probably would if I really wanted to formulate a strategy. Then I've already engaged with it, right? So if I'm deliberately indifferent, he's got a different reaction out of me, and then he's pointing to that from the grave, going, "There you go, I gotcha."
To invest too wholeheartedly in it was to fall for it, and to reject it was to fall for it. So there's something to be said here for this. I guess this sense that it's perhaps to the harshest critic, they're contributing, as we've already established, to this matrix of considerations that becomes the world of the work by objecting to it. Whereas perhaps to someone already familiar with the Duchampian gesture, it's just a joke you tell once.
Yeah, well, you tell it once for £250,000, 90 times, in fact. So maybe one of the questions that it brings up for me is, how does an artist get to the point where they're renowned enough that they can do shit in a can and everyone goes, yeah, that's brilliant? Because if that was the first piece that you produced, in undergrad art school or whatever, you go, oh, that's it. Here's a piece of shit in a can. You'd hand that in. I'm pretty sure your professor would say, have another go. You don't just bring this one straight out of the blocks, do you? So the guy's done other stuff beforehand to get to a level of renown that allows him to have a pedestal to go and do this.
He was, of course, very young at the time. And as is the case with many other mythologized artists, sometimes the audience catches up with the act later. So, this is obviously something that across time and space has propelled a mythology beyond the gesture that's significantly larger. But perhaps like a futures trader, he speculated upon that.
Maybe. Or was he just rolling?
Well, it's certainly a gesture that picked up speed. So he was interested in this idea of what is that sort of mark of individuation, that mark of personality that people buy into. People still strangely expect a signature on a work of art. Of course, most works of contemporary art are accompanied by a certificate of authenticity or a signature on the back, because we've established long ago that the signature becomes part of the image. But putting that aside for a moment, there's this sense of, a fingerprint as often regarded as a way of substantiating the presence of an individual at a crime. So Manzoni, in a letter to a friend in 1961, wrote, "The fingerprint is the only sign of the personality that can be accepted. If collectors want something intimate, really personal to the artist, there's the artist's own shit. That is really his." So he was invested in this idea that it was really his shit. Of course, that, as you've already noted, that wasn't the first the work that he came out of the gates with. He'd already produced Artist Breath. Balloons filled with his own breath.
and that shit in a can, it lasts, right? You put stuff in a can, it's there for as long as the can lasts, which is a hell of a long time. Artist's breath into a balloon lasts. What is that going to be? Days, a week at the most, because the balloon doesn't hold the air forever. So then you're left with the deflated balloon that is the work, and the artist's breath, which is the substantial piece of the work, isn't even there anymore.
Well, it's, as we've already established discussing Robert Barry, it's there out there in the world, circulating forever. Nothing disappears.
he also produced some other works, and a lot of them, pretty controversial in my eyes as well. Just, white on white, things like that you just go, oh, come on. Like,
have you seen his Base of the World? That's one of my favourite Manzoni
I did
works.
see that. So I actually, that one I really like. So this is, they're riffing on the theme of claiming things that are out in the world as art, right? So here's my interpretation of that one. You'd have because it went from like a pedestal that had a label on it, and then individuals from the audience would get up on the pedestal and thereby become the art that is on the pedestal. Okay, that's pretty cool, good one. But then you take the idea of the pedestal displaying the art, turn the pedestal upside down, and what's on top of the pedestal, the whole earth, that's the art. Oh, good one. You've claimed the whole earth as a piece of art. Oh, like, really?
There's something else quite interesting happening with that, and that is that the delivery mechanism, the material object, i.e. the pedestal, the plinth, we'll call it, where plinth is how we display a sculptural object, it itself is not the work. So the vehicular medium for presenting the work is not in itself the work.
Yeah, but it's a way of presenting it. It's got to be, it holds some importance all of its own. Like the frame around the Mona Lisa, right? You don't go there to look at the frame, but if somebody changed it out for a different frame, people would notice.
Like an IKEA one or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. And similarly, as Brian O'Doherty wrote in his book, Behind the White Cube, there's this deity, this sense of or the sense of deification that we attribute to the work of art by placing it in this white cube, this secular space that elevates the work, such that a pristine white cube, you place anything in it and it looks like art.
Yeah.
The white cube, of course, being the supposedly neutral space within which we present art. And the white wall, the white page, the white cube, there's this assumption that we're drawing attention to the standalone, autonomous, deified, fetishized object, and we're somehow marking it out as separate from everything else. But we're also doing the opposite. We're using the context of presentation to elevate the work, just like all of the conspicuous space that sits around a fashion item sitting in a window. The most expensive labels have more space around the dress in the window or the handbag in the window.
To bring your attention to it, yeah.
Yeah. Would it surprise you that many artists across the 20th century have produced empty rooms and presented them as works of art?
How many times can you do it and it's still an original work?
And then, would it surprise you further to know that in 2009, a major museum, the Pompidou Centre in Paris, presented a retrospective of the great works, empty works. It had a series of empty rooms. The beautiful and expensive catalogue called Voids was produced to accompany the exhibition. A blockbuster, shall we call it, retrospective of empty spaces. And interestingly, one empty room is not the same as another.
Oh, no, obviously not.
For the same reasons when we discussed the monochrome. We noted that one monochrome presents the flat end of the road, end of painting, that's all we can say and do here, whereas another one opens up a deep metaphysical void. We see similar kinds of distinctions at play in the presentation of empty rooms. But we're off topic here. Let's get back to the real shit.
Well, I think this one we can wrap up because my mind is pretty firmly made up on this one. It's shit.
Well, it's literally shit, but we've already established that the literal identity of something presented as art is, in many cases, particularly if we think about Arthur C. Danto's idea of the transfiguration of the commonplace, as a work of art, it becomes something else. So, whilst we might agree that it's literally shit, is it also conceptually, socially, metaphorically shit?
I'm at a loss because what it has done is made me think about it. It's it's made me react emotionally to it. So, although having said that, I've reacted emotionally to other shit in the past. Having kids, sometimes you just clean it up and it's no issue. Other times it's really annoying. This one is right down the really annoying end.
But perhaps we enjoy being annoyed, just like we enjoy being scared. Why do we watch a scary movie?
Good question. No, for me, it's shit.
There's some kind of aesthetic pleasure in there, but for me, it is a bit of a one-liner. It's a really good art historical one-liner. It tells us something about the philosophy of art. It's continued to spread out across time and space, but it's finally, for me, an over-familiar gesture. But I'm not going to call it shit.
Yeah. I get that if you're taking some of these concepts to the extreme, this is right at the edge of that extreme. And I'm sure you can go further. Like when you think of white painting so it's the end of painting. Okay, no, it's not. You can not paint it at all. And then you can not have the canvas. And then you can not have the front. Like you can keep going.
You can not.
Yeah, that's right. And then you can have a retrospective of a whole bunch of not. So you can keep going. But this feels like, if you really wanted to produce something in the world of it's art because I called it art. Okay, here's a really obvious example of it. And maybe it's the fact that it's pretty obvious. That's the bit that annoys me. If there was some subtlety to it or whatever, maybe I'd be less annoyed. I don't know.
You're saying that it's not naughty enough.
It's a bit too obviously shit. Yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah.